Hi, I'm Christopher Daniels. You may know me as a ring general, one half of Bad Influence, a pillar of society, and an inspiration to children everywhere. And every Thursday night, I like to listen to Inside the Ropes. Maybe you should too, and that would make you almost as good as me.
And we're back in Inside the Ropes, and I am genuinely thrilled that we're able to bring this man to Inside the Ropes. He is one half of arguably the most entertaining tag team of 2013 in Bad Influence. Some know him as the Fallen Angel. You might even know him as Sherlock Holmes now. The one and only Christopher Daniels. Chris, welcome to Inside the Ropes.
All right, man. Thanks for having me. And by the way, if it's arguably the best tag team or the most entertaining, you guys are losing that argument. We already are the most entertaining tag team of 2013, probably of the decade. So you should probably start introducing us as that, I think.
I should. I'll edit that out and just take away the arguably.
Sounds good. That sounds good.
So, yeah, I mean, 2013, what a year it's been for you guys, for you and Kazarian. I mean, you guys, a lot of the time, are the highlight of Impact every week. How have you found 2013?
Yeah, I mean, you know, we're still rolling. Frankie and I are still rolling at the top of the card. You know, and like you said, everybody's letting us know that we're usually the most entertaining part of the show. So, I mean, we're just going out there and you know, taking what they give us and trying to stay entertaining, stay relevant, and be the thing that you talk about after the show's over.
And I think a lot of our listeners will be shocked to know that you made your pro wrestling debut 20 years ago. That doesn't seem right. That doesn't seem that you were wrestling that long ago. What initially got you kind of hooked into becoming a pro wrestler? Were you a fan growing up, or did you kind of fall into it?
No, I was absolutely a fan growing up. I grew up in North Carolina, so as a kid I grew up watching guys like Ric Flair and Dusty Rhodes out of the Mid-Atlantic territories and Jim Crockett Promotions. So, yeah, I went to, my dad would take me to the shows, the shows in the Cumberland County Arena, and I'd watch the television show every Saturday morning when I woke up. So I was always a fan growing up, but, like, you know, in those days, you know, those guys like Dusty and the Road Warriors, and they were all huge. And so I never really thought I was ever going to be that big in my life. But right after I graduated college, and, you know, the advent of guys like Sean Waltman and Shawn Michaels, you know, smaller guys, more athletic, you know, that was when I decided there might be an opportunity for me. And so I found a school in Chicago called Windy City Pro Wrestling, and I decided to give it a try, and started training in January of 1993. And after about 3 months of training, they thought I was ready to wrestle. And I had my first match in April of '93, and that was where after I started wrestling, that's where you learn most of the bulk of your knowledge is like on the job training, so to speak. You know, you can always wrestle in front of a school or in a school in front of no one and learn how to do stuff, but learning when to do it and why to do it in front of fans, that's where you really learn the most. You know, the knowledge that you keep during your career.
And you obviously worked quite a lot in Ring of Honor in your career, and you worked with CM Punk a fair bit, and obviously now he's in WWE, doing well for himself. What was it like working with him kind of back then? And because you guys, did you kind of see his career taking the path that it has? Did you see it going the way it did?
Well, I saw that he had the work ethic to make it work. It really is a lot of times just a matter of getting that opportunity. And, you know, it's funny that, like the example that he is and the example that Daniel Bryan is now, it seems to go against the grain of what WWE is trying to do, because it seems very rare that they're taking guys off the indies anymore. You know, it seems like they want to have their performance center and start guys from the bottom there and sort of keep them. It's almost like they're trying to grow wrestlers in a petri dish. When you look at guys like Punk and Daniel Bryan and Antonio Cesaro, who worked all over the world in the independent scene, and it seems like those guys are doing well for themselves and making it in the WWE system, despite not being brought up in the WWE system. So it's interesting. I mean, like working with Punk back then, like I said, I knew he had the work ethic to make it happen. It was just that opportunity and that you know, having sort of the opportunity to knock on his door, so to speak. And when it finally happened for him, you know, I was afraid too that like once he went to developmental, who knows what it was going to take someone to see something in him to get him out of the developmental system. And luckily for him, that person was Paul Heyman. And Paul Heyman and the ECW brand sort of coming around, that gave him the opportunity to get out of the developmental system and sort of get on national television. And even after that, it was a long, it was a hard road for him to make it from doing the stuff on ECW to where he is now. So, I mean, I knew that he had the opportunity or he could make it. It was just, circumstances had to benefit him. And, I mean, there are a lot of guys that go through that don't get the opportunities that Punk had. And Punk, capitalized on all those opportunities that he had. So, I mean, there's not a science to it, man. It's a lot of it is luck. A lot of it is just being prepared when the opportunity comes around. And Punk had that.
The thing that's interesting about your career is that you've been a part of TNA pretty much as well since the beginning almost. You've been there for so long and has so many kind of great angles there. But back in the kind of beginning of TNA, back in like 2002, 2003, what was it like for fans who maybe watch it now and they see Impact Wrestling when it was back in Nashville? What was it like back then? What do you kind of remember about that period?
It was great, man. I felt like we were really doing something great. It was a different sort of business model that the TNA pay-per-views were doing, the weekly pay-per-views. It was different from anything else that was going on. Usually people worked hard to get a television show. They worked hard to get live events, and then they started working on pay-per-views. TNA started with the pay-per-views and just doing a weekly, lower-priced pay-per-view to sort of entice people to watch it. And, they were throwing a lot of different things up against the wall to see what stuck, but one of them that did was the X Division. And I felt like that gave a lot of buzz and it got people talking. And I think that the work of guys like AJ and Low Key and Jerry Lynn and Red, that got people talking to the point where it became feasible that we would get a television deal, and that's what ended up happening.
Yeah, I know, and you've shown kind of through the Fallen Angel character and through Curryman the sort of different things that you can do, and I guess one of the things that always kind of intrigues me whenever we talk to guys from TNA is, in sort of early 2010 when TNA went to the four-sided ring from the six-sided ring, obviously fan opinion on that is going to be varied, but as a performer that worked in TNA when it was the six-sided ring and then it changed, did you kind of embrace that change when they went to the more traditional four-sided ring?
Honestly, I didn't care either way. I mean, it really was just the stage that we performed on, and at the end, it's the performance that mattered more than where we did it. When they went to the six-sided ring, it took me a little while to get used to it, the physical differences and the logistical differences. But, once I got used to it, it wasn't any different to me. And the same thing going back to the four-sided ring. Like, I could see both sides of the argument as far as like having a six-sided ring and a four-sided ring, but in the end it didn't affect my performance, it didn't affect the wrestling, and so it just was a matter of a decision that was made from the higher ups, and we went with it. All the performers, all the wrestlers, whether it's four sides or six sides, we go out there and we try to entertain and keep people invested in the wrestling, and it doesn't matter to us what sort of stage that we were on, whether it's four sides, six sides, an octagon, it doesn't matter. Yeah,
absolutely. And also in 2011, you got to work with names like Ric Flair and Hulk Hogan during the whole sort of Fortune Immortal thing. What was it like to get to work with those kind of huge names from the past that had been brought in?
I mean, it was fun, man. I mean, they brought their own, their own characters to our little feud, and being able to actually wrestle in the ring with Ric Flair during one of the lethal lockdowns was, something that, as a kid, you grow up watching this guy, and then to share a locker room with him, to interact with him in the ring, to interact with him on a microphone. I mean, that was a lot of fun, and it meant a lot to me, and to sort of gain his respect. To me, it meant something for him to, sort of look at what I was doing and respect that. And the same thing with Hulk Hogan, man. I've been fortunate enough to work with Hulk Hogan and work in front of Hulk Hogan enough to the point where Hulk considers me and Frankie one of his favorite tag teams, one of his favorite acts in our company right now. And I know that for the last 2 years that influence has been together. I know that we've had Hulk support, And so that meant a lot to me to know that we had sort of caught the eye of someone who has had such an impact on this business and got his respect and his favorable opinion.
Yeah, definitely. And can you talk a little bit about the team of Bad Influence teaming with Frankie Kazarian? How did you guys kind of come up with the Bad Influence thing? Was that something that was kind of, they wanted to put you guys in a team and you kind of came up with it, or was it something that, how did that all come about?
Well, actually, Frankie and I, after at the end of like 2010, 2011, I think, we sort of saw the writing on the wall in terms of tag team wrestling in TNA, because Beer Money had just split up, and the Motor City Machine Guns had sort of had injuries, and so they weren't on television. So there wasn't really like a top level tag team that was operating. And so Frankie and I, we had just gotten done sort of with the with Fortune sort of splitting up. I had turned on AJ Styles, but I'd sort of finished a few of them. And so I didn't see anything in the pipeline for me as a singles, and Frankie sort of felt the same way. And so we decided to go to them and ask them if they didn't have a spot for us to let us be a tag team, and they responded positively and gave us the storyline that we did with AJ. And so while we were doing that, Frankie and I had been friends for close to 12 years at that point, before TNA. And so we had always had good chemistry together. We'd always been close friends. And so it didn't take us very long for us to sort of gel in the ring as a tag team. And the stuff that we've done in the ring, on the microphone, all that stuff has sort of just been us sort of turned up to the 11th degree, so to speak. Us being smart-ass guys, us being snarky, wise asses. How we act on the microphone, how we act in the ring, that's just sort of us being us. And I think that sort of idea of just going out there and being ourselves and having fun while we do it, that sort of has spilled over to the fans to the point where, like you said, we've become one of the most entertaining parts of the show. And whenever we come out, people know that there's going to be something to talk about, whether it's something we say or something we do. That's our goal, is for people to be talking about us at the end of a 2-hour show, standing out and being a part that they remember.
Well, I mean, if you want to talk about people talking about you, I remember last summer when we were doing the show, and one of the storylines that people just could not get enough of and stop talking about was Claire Lynch in TNA. And I guess as a performer, what is it like to kind of get into a story like that and be able to be involved in something that's kind of not something that comes along all the time? It's a kind of different story to be a part of.
Well, it was great, man. We definitely tried to do something different in terms of like the approach of that story and the way it was told. We tried to do something different rather than just, in the way that guys are always working for championships or sort of blood feuds. This was something where we were trying to go personal. And I think, for a while it sort of caught people off guard because it was different. We approached it differently. The way we were going about it was different. And, involving Dixie in it and this girl, Claire Lynch, that sort of stood apart from your standard wrestling storyline. And so, and it also gave Frankie and myself the opportunity to get on a microphone for the very first time in a long-term situation. I mean, they've always sort of given us opportunities to talk, but never something as long-term and as involved as what we had. And so I think that was when people saw that Frankie and I could talk and be compelling characters, and we sort of kept that momentum going ever since.
And in the sort of 2 years that you guys have been a team, what are the kind of couple of kind of matches that stick out in your mind that you would kind of, almost if they were going to make a DVD of Bad Influence, these would kind of be the matches you would say these ones need to be on here? Well,
definitely the Slammiversary match in 2012 with Kurt and AJ. Mm-hmm. That was probably in my eyes, that was the best match TNA put out that whole year. And, we've had a lot of good matches with guys like AJ and Ken Anderson, AJ and James Storm. We've had, in the last couple of months, when Gunner and James Storm were tag team champions, we had a lot of good matches with them on live events and, stuff that you might not have seen on TV, but we had opportunities to do it in front of fans all around the world. And, I feel like those were some really good matches. And it's just, part of our strength is the fact that we can wrestle any type of guys and be entertaining and have good times and have good matches. And I think that's one of the reasons why we've stuck around so well, is because it doesn't matter what team you put in there with us, we're going to go out there and have, a match that stands out and a match that gets people happy that they bought tickets to watch it.
And obviously, recently TNA have made the decision to go back to Orlando with Impact for a lot of the time. What was your kind of, because you've been back once now, I think, what has it been like going back to that more kind of intimate atmosphere of a kind of regular crowd?
I think it was good, man. We just got back from doing a set of tapings there, the first set of tapings we'd done in almost 8 months. And I think they were very well received. The fans, they welcomed us back with open arms. And we had a little different setup that we did when we left. So I mean, there's definitely a freshness to us there now that we didn't have, last year. And I'm looking forward to see how this goes for the next set of tapings coming up the first week of December. And then once we sort of settle back down into an actual sound stage that's going to become ours, it'll be interesting to see how that's responded. I think it's the best thing for our company. We did the thing where we went around and taped shows in different venues around the United States, and that worked well for us, but there were also negatives to that. Cost-wise, it wasn't really effective for us. And so, I feel like going back and doing what's best for our company, going back to a central location, and hopefully having the opportunity to go out on occasion, whether it's for our pay-per-views or for certain television tapings, going out to different venues around the U.S. again. I think that's going to be better for us overall, a little bit of the best of both worlds, getting the new fans when we're away from the Orlando area, and then having that stability when we are in Orlando. I think that all benefits us in the long run.
And, in the sort of 11 years that you've been with TNA, you've pretty much wrestled every day there is to wrestle. But is there anyone left sort of active that you would still, you'd still like to get in the ring with before you sort of decide to retire?
Well, I mean, there's probably 30 guys that wrestle for WWE that I haven't had an opportunity to wrestle with that I'd love to have that chance to work with, but I don't think that's going to happen. I think at this point in my career, it would be very, very unlikely that the WWE and I would ever sort of decide to work together in that respect. So, I mean, those guys, but there are guys like in Japan, guys in Ring of Honor that I watch, guys like Prince Devitt, guys like Adam Cole, Tommaso Ciampa. Those guys over there, they're doing great, and hopefully I get an opportunity to share a locker room with them and work one-on-one with them. But until that happens, I'm happy doing what I'm doing with TNA and sort of building the Bad Influence brand and still continuing being Christopher Daniels over there. So.
And as a performer for TNA, what has your kind of thought process been through the Dixie Carter character that's kind of started playing out on television? What have you kind of thought of that so far?
Well, I think it's going well for her. I feel like she's just now starting to find a voice as far as being a heel. She's still sort of growing into it as someone who hadn't really had that sort of experience or that sort of acting background. For her to go out there and do what she's doing, I think she's doing a great job. And it's interesting to see how she's going to interact with all of the wrestlers on the roster. And that's something that hasn't really been approached yet, is how she's going to interact with Bad Influence after the last 2 years of her interactions with us. So, I mean, that's still sort of an unanswered question. And, hopefully that'll come around soon, and we'll see what happens with that.
And just to sort of finish things up, in January you're going to be heading over to the UK with TNA as part of the Maximum Impact Tour, and pretty exciting news. It's going to be the first time ever in Scottish history that a wrestling show is taped to a TV show here. It's going to be a live Impact Wrestling taping. What is that like for you when you guys get to come over here and experience the UK crowds? It must be a kind of buzz for you to come over for that.
Absolutely. We know that some of our strongest support comes from the UK, and so every year when we get over there, we know that we're going to be in front of crowds that appreciate what we're doing, and those are the fans that, fans that are hungry to watch us and hungry to see us live, those are the best audiences to perform in front of. There's just an energy there that you don't have with, with people that are sort of so about the product. And we've been very fortunate every time we've been over there to have great crowds and great responses, and which is why the UK Tour is usually one of the highlights of our touring year. And I'm looking forward to see what is in store for us in 2014 out there.
Chris, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
You're welcome, man. Have a good day.